In July 2003, a tragic event occurred in Clear Lake, Texas, a suburban area just outside Houston. What started as a gathering of friends soon turned into a crime scene, and for years, the case went unsolved until one phone call finally brought answers. Christine Marie Paolila was born on March 31, 1986, in Long Island, New York. Her mother Lori was a stay-at-home mom, while her father Charles worked as a construction worker. Christine had one older brother named John. Tragedy struck the family when Christine's father died in a workplace accident. A heavy load of bricks fell on him, which was the cause of his death. This hit the family hard. Charles had a life insurance policy, and oddly he had named only his daughter Christine as the sole beneficiary. Christine would not be able to access the life insurance money until she turned 18, which meant that even though the family had this financial safety net, they could not benefit from it for years. Lori found it difficult to raise two children without any immediate source of income. As time went on, things got worse for Christine and her family. Her mother turned to substances to cope with her grief. Unfortunately, her addiction spiraled out of control and she eventually lost custody of Christine and John for a period of time. This led to a lot of instability for the children, who had to move in with various relatives before finally staying with their grandparents. As if that wasn't difficult enough, Christine also faced another challenge during her childhood. When Christine was just 5 years old, something terrifying happened. She woke up one morning to find her hair all over her pillow. Soon after, she lost all of her eyelashes too. Christine was diagnosed with alopecia, a condition that causes hair loss. Over just a couple of weeks, she became completely bald. On top of that, Christine had vision problems and she wore large glasses. This was incredibly hard for a young girl. At the New York school, kids made fun of her, laughed at her, and even stole her wig. It was a tough time for her, and it severely impacted her self-esteem. Things didn't improve much in school. Christine wasn't a great student, and it felt like her future wasn't looking very bright. But then things started to change. Lori got clean and reached out to her children. She had remarried a man named Tom. The entire family moved to Clear Lake City, Texas, a suburb of Houston. Christine was enrolled at Clear Lake High School, a well-regarded school with a history of having successful graduates. However, life in Texas didn't start off great. At 14, Christine found herself feeling lonely and lost in a new place. After Christine had been attending school for a while, she made two new friends, Rachel Colorudis and Tiffany Rowell. They were a year older than Christine and were considered among the popular crowd at school. Christine's mother later remembered how Christine came home one day, excited about the new friends she had made. She described them as the sweetest girls ever. Rachel and Tiffany quickly took Christine under their wing. They gave Christine a makeover, and she felt comfortable enough with them to take off her wig. Instantly, Christine felt like one of the cool girls, hanging out with her two best friends. Not only were they popular, but they were also kind and genuinely good friends to Christine. Rachel, born in 1984, had dreams of joining the Air Force. She worked at various jobs, including babysitting and waiting tables at Denny's. She was also heavily involved in a youth drama club and served as a youth counselor, always trying to help others. Tiffany, on the other hand, was an aspiring actress with hopes of becoming a social worker. She was known for her kindness and for always standing up for the underdog. Things were going so well for Christine that in 2003, at 17 years old, she was voted Miss Irresistible by her classmates. However, around the same time, Christine started dating a 21-year-old guy named Christopher Snyder. Christopher had a bad boy vibe and their relationship was toxic. He had a criminal past, including an armed robbery. After serving time, he returned to Christine, who was waiting for him. Her family disapproved of him. They were using substances together. He isolated Christine from her friends and family by emotionally manipulating and controlling her. One particularly hurtful incident occurred when Christopher humiliated Christine publicly by ripping off her wig outside her school. But despite this cruelty, she stayed with him. Christine, having experienced significant loss in her life, became obsessively attached to him. She called him constantly, showed up uninvited, and even slept on his lawn. Her jealousy was intense. She would lash out if she saw him interacting with other women. Her neediness and possessiveness were driven by a deep fear of abandonment. On the other hand, Christopher's family blamed Christine for the dysfunctional relationship, claiming she was obsessively jealous. After a big argument, she spent the night on his front lawn, refusing to leave and threatening to harm his family. Christopher's sister Brandy said that within their household, they referred to Christine as the psycho. Rachel and Tiffany also didn't like Christopher. They were worried about him and his influence on Christine, but they still tried to be supportive. But in May 2003, things started to shift. Tiffany and Rachel graduated. Tiffany began dating Marcus Purcella, a guy she had met at a bar. Marcus's cousin Adalbert Sanchez also started hanging out with them. On the other hand, Christine was still in high school and working at Walgreens in the makeup section. She began to feel lonely again, isolated from the friends who had helped her feel accepted just a year earlier. On the night of July 18, 2003, Christine and her boyfriend went to Tiffany's house in Clear Lake City. They planned to rob Tiffany's house, believing that the girls had substances there. But when they arrived, Tiffany, Rachel, Marcus, and Adalbert were all there. Things quickly escalated when Christopher argued with Marcus, which led to the shooting of all 4 people. They were shot multiple times with a 9mm handgun and a .38 caliber revolver. Over 40 rounds were fired in total. Rachel, after being shot, managed to crawl across the floor to reach the phone, likely trying to call 911. But before she could make the call, Christine approached her and began hitting her repeatedly in the head. Rachel's last words were reportedly "why?" as Christine continued to strike her. Both Rachel and Tiffany were shot in the groin area, which police later believed was a sign of jealousy, indicating a more personal and intense hatred. Later, Christopher drove Christine to her job at a Walgreens makeup counter, as if nothing had happened. When the police arrived, they discovered 4 people had been brutally murdered with multiple shell casings from 2 different weapons scattered around the room, suggesting that more than one person had been involved in it. The police suspected that it was a dealing that had gone wrong. Marcus was known to be involved in selling substances. Neighbors reported hearing gunshots that night, but they dismissed them as firecrackers. The only evidence police had were vague descriptions provided by the neighbors of a man and a woman, seen walking to and from the house around the time of the murders. Christine's mother, Lori, said that Christine was deeply affected by the murder of her 2 best friends. She couldn't stop crying and spent 3 days in bed, unable to get up. She initially received a lot of sympathy and many people felt sorry for her. For a while, the case remained unsolved. Despite the $100,000 reward being offered for information, no solid leads came forward. Christine continued to spiral deeper into a life of substance abuse and petty crimes. In 2004, a year after graduating high school, she was arrested for shoplifting, but she didn't face much consequence for her actions, and her relationship with Christopher ended when he was arrested for car theft in Kentucky. Shortly after the breakup, Christine went to a recovery center in another part of Texas. There she met a man named Stanley Justin Rott, who was also there for substance addiction. Christine and Stanley began dating. In 2005, not long after they met, they got married. Stanley had no idea about Christine's dark past or her connection to the brutal murders of her friends. Around the same time, Christine received a trust fund from her father's passing, worth $360,000. She used part of the money to buy an apartment. In July 2005, 2 years after the incident, Christine saw a news segment about the unsolved case. She became upset after seeing the sketches of the suspects drawn from neighbors' descriptions. Fearful that the sketches looked like her, she panicked. The guilt seemed to catch up with her, and she decided to confess to Stanley, her new husband, what had really happened. After Christine confessed to Stanley about her involvement in the brutal killings of her 2 best friends and 2 others, they went into hiding together. By November 2005, the couple was living in a motel in San Antonio, where they spent months using substances and staying under the radar. They continued to stay hidden, living a life of addiction, but in July 2006, an anonymous caller, who had been in the recovery center with Christine, contacted police and claimed to know crucial details about the quadruple homicide. They revealed that Christine had admitted to being part of the murders and even bragged about them. Interestingly, it was not Stanley who made the call, but a different person she had met there. This led investigators to track Christine down by following her ATM transactions. On July 19, 2006, they found her and Stanley in a hotel room in San Antonio. The scene was shocking. Dozens of needles scattered around the room, and there were signs of severe neglect, including feces smeared on the walls. After their arrest, Stanley confirmed to the police that Christine had confessed to him about the murders. He told investigators that Christine had not only participated in the shooting but had also gone back into the house and had brutally beaten her friend Rachel, who was trying to call for help. Stanley said that Christine told him Rachel was screaming as she was hitting her. Initially, Christine denied any involvement. During her interrogations, she tried to shift the blame onto her ex-boyfriend Christopher, saying that she hadn't gone into the house. She claimed she had never touched the gun and that it was all Christopher's fault. But Stanley's testimony and the details he provided matched information that only someone involved in the crime could have known, which ultimately convinced the authorities. On July 21, 2006, both Christine and Christopher were charged with 4 counts of capital murder. Christine was arrested, and her bond was set at $500,000. Meanwhile, Christopher had fled to Greenville, South Carolina, where he was living with a woman he had met online. A family member of Christopher contacted him, informing him that the police would soon be looking for him. Christopher panicked and went into hiding and was found dead in June 2006, in a field near the area where he had been hiding. Authorities later found out that he had taken his own life by overdosing. During Christine's trial, she continued to deny and blame everything on Christopher and refused to take accountability for her actions. Despite her continued denial, the jury convicted her of 4 counts of capital murder. Because she was a juvenile at the time of the crime, Christine was spared the death penalty and sentenced to life in prison. Christine filed several appeals, but they were all denied. She is currently serving her sentence at the Christina Melton Crane Unit in Gatesville, Texas, and she will be eligible for parole in 2046, when she turns 60 years old. The reasons behind the murders remain unclear, but some believe jealousy played a role. Psychiatrist opinions suggest that Christine may have harbored deep resentment toward her friends Rachel and Tiffany, who had helped her and tried to lift her up in high school. It's thought that Christine may have been envious of their popularity. Combined with substance use and the toxic influence of her boyfriend, her emotions may have escalated into committing the brutal attack. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to my channel for more true crime content. See you next time.